Welcome everyone to our June 3rd City Council meeting. Sorry we're getting started 10 minutes late here, but we did have a very good discussion in our workshop today with the County Health Department, talking about a lot of the programs that they have available and partnerships that we can have with them. So it was a great workshop for those who attended, but we will start, as always, with welcoming Councilmember Brown.
Here.
Start with the Pledge of Allegiance, so if you'll stand and repeat. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you so much. And Rory, will you see who is here and not here?
Yes, Councilmember Robinson. Here. Mikalash. Here. Brown.
Here.
Billy. Here. And Glover.
Here. Okay, that's all of us. Next up, we have public comments. Anyone wishing to give public comment can step up to the microphone now. You'll have 3 minutes. We do have a number of public hearings on the schedule today, so if you're here to discuss something on the public hearing, we'll have an opportunity at that point. But any other public comments, feel free. Luke. Or Secretary Maines, I should say.
That's actually what I wanted to give my public comment on. I don't know if I saw it on the agenda, but the Community Council has recently reformed officially as of last Wednesday, I believe. If it's only been that long, maybe the one before. But yes, and so I'm the secretary for that newly reformed Community Council. We have a lot of good plans to see how we can contribute to our community and have the community help itself to with beautification and with service to people who need it. So I wanted to invite everyone who's here to attend. It's open to everyone who lives in Midvale, as well as anyone who has any kind of interest in Midvale. So if you're here, you're qualified. So yeah, hope to see as many people as possible there. So far, we have a publicity committee that we've founded, and that will be focused on finding ways to keep the community informed about upcoming city and community events that people can participate in. And so I'll be coordinating with someone here at the city, I'm sure, to figure out, make sure we don't miss anything for that. Yeah, the City Council is especially welcome and invited to attend the meetings and to join the Community Council. We do have a provision in our new bylaws that says that elected officials can't serve on the executive committee, but other than that, you're welcome to participate fully and to vote in all of our things, and we would love to have as many of you as are interested participate in that. I think that's the main thing so far. But if you have any questions about Community Council, you want to know more, yeah, of course.
I'm just wondering when the next meeting is.
Yes, the next full meeting of the council will be on the 25th of June, I believe. It's the last Wednesday of every month that we meet at the Ruth Vine Tyler Library. So mark that down. Our July meeting is moved up a little bit so we don't conflict with the 24th, but we'll have the details of that. And as soon as we have our executive meeting tomorrow, we'll make sure to publish this as far and wide as we can so people can be aware of when our meetings are. Yeah. If you have any questions or anyone in the community has questions, feel free to come and ask me. One of the duties of the council is to attend these meetings, someone on the council to attend these meetings, to represent the views of the council, and also to take notes for the council. So that's what one of the reasons I'm here. So very excited. Thanks.
I do have a question.
Thank you, Luke.
Oh, yeah. If 4 of us want to go to that, it's a quorum, so I'm just asking the question.
3, right? So they changed the law regarding open public meetings. It now has to be convened or whatnot. So you can be in the same place at the same time as long as you're not predetermining council decisions. So if at that meeting the 4 of you start discussing something that's going to come before the council, that's going to be problematic. But if you're just there in attendance and observing, that's not a problem.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
And thank you, Luke, for being here and willing to serve as secretary. So I know that's probably one of the busier ones of the leadership position. So thank you for taking that on, and thank you to two other members of the community council I see in the audience here. So would anyone else like to give public comment? If so, please step up to the microphone. You'll be given 3 minutes. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public comments. Before council reports, I do want to recognize Chief Mazarin and Lieutenant Malone in the audience here, so good to see you guys. Moving on to council reports, we'll start as always with Councilmember Bonnie Billings.
Yeah, I just wanted to say how excited I am for the community council, and I'm really glad that that's getting started and up and going again, and I look forward to participating in that. Also, just a plug for Los Muros that's happening on Saturday at 4 o'clock. Our murals across Main Street and in this vicinity. There is already a beautiful mural on the west side of Holden Street that will be featured as well. So definitely come out to that. It's going to be a really great time.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember. And Councilmember Paul Glover.
So just this evening, I just want to tell everybody mosquito season is here. It is deep, going well. There, we do have people out from the South Salt Lake Valley Mosquito Abatement District. Just so you know, if you have standing water, dump it out if you can't. If you have a pond or something that you can't dump, you can actually call Mosquito Abatement District and they'll come and treat those standing water. I mean, if it's in a tire or something like that, just dump it out. But if you need it, they'll come to you. So just have to get on their website and request the service. That's all this evening.
Has there been any reports yet of West Nile virus in Salt Lake County?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay. Cross
Hopefully
fingers.
not.
Okay. All right, thank you. Councilmember Heidi Robinson.
I just want to say, since it's our first meeting in June, it'll be official Pride Month. That's all I have tonight.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Brian Brown.
Hey, thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I want to echo, make sure you come and enjoy the mural festival that Councilmember Billings talked about. It's such a great event, such an interesting place in Utah. It's just very walkable, right? Where some are a lot more spread out, I think, other areas. So, I suggest come and enjoy. And on that, I would like to sort of echo what Councilmember Robinson said, that this is Pride Month, and for those in the audience that weren't aware, we did a resolution March because we weren't sure how the legislation would handle it. It's not because we're not doing one. We already did one, and we find the community is very valuable to Midvale and are very important to us, and we will support as much as we possibly can to the extent we can and more. So thank you for being part of Midvale. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilmember. And finally, Councilmember Denise Mikalash.
Yes, want to say I'm excited about the community council. Know of those that are participating, so excited for that. After you come to the Mural Festival on Saturday, you can go to the Pride Festival on Sundays. So lots of good stuff to participate in and support the community. So.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember. All right, for my report, as someone who will be at both Mural Festival on Saturday and Pride Festival on Sunday, I look forward to seeing you there, and happy Pride Month to those who are here and those who celebrate. Just a couple of things. The mural, we're doing a mural walk with the mayor Thursday from 6 to 8. We'll meet here at City Hall and we'll take a walk around and look at the new murals. We have 5 new major murals going up this year, which is less than some years, but these are pretty major murals that are going to really make a difference, and especially the one that I think it was Councilmember Billings mentioned. Take a look right across the street. It's beautiful. So that will be from 6 to 8. We'll have free ice cream for everyone at the end of that. So I hope to see folks here on Thursday. Last Tuesday, Councilmember Billings and I attended Copperview Elementary Spring Concert, which was pretty adorable. We had a table set up there, and kids didn't really ask us many questions. They were more interested in taking the cars and toys and such that we had there. But it was a good event. It was fun to go to that. Last Thursday, I attended an event. It was a UTA kind of just like an open house kind of event with UTA with folks from all over Utah there. That was a really good time, and I think that it's something we should get council members to go to in the next few years as those come up, because it was very, very informative, and we get asked so many questions about public transportation. I didn't do it, but I wanted to. They also let you drive a bus in their like little workshop area. So if that's something that interests the council, next year we can send that invite to more folks. Last but certainly not least, we passed the final tentative budget for UPD, which is obviously the largest line item for us each year. The initial impact to Midvale was as high as 6.5%. That was way, way back in the dark ages of 2025. But I'm happy to report through a lot of maneuvering from UPD brass and Chief Morse and the UPD board as well. Midvale share is going to be, you ready for it? 3.46%, which is far below the 5% that the council and me, the mayor, were comfortable with. I say comfortable with an asterisk. We would have been very uncomfortable with a 5% increase, but that was at least tolerable at the time. So 3.46, again, subject to change. Hopefully, we won't see many fluctuations in that, but very, very thankful to UPD and Debbie in particular, who was up. I don't think she slept last week at all, so hopefully she can sleep again. I've talked way more than Matt told me I was allowed to, so I will end it there and move on to City Manager Matt Dahl.
Thank you. I don't know if you are aware, but there will be a mural festival on Saturday. I was going to mention that, but thank you all for covering that. The primary thing that I wanted to discuss this evening was that on Center Street, where the I-15 crosses Center Street and the heavy rail, there has been a cleanup project I hope that you have seen recently, where we have removed, I know there's a formal name for them, it's escaping me, we call them spider bushes over and over again.
Fetzers.
Fessers?
Fetzers.
Fencers. So we removed a bunch of those bushes. We did some cleanup, put rock in. We did stub it out for water so that we could have that in the future. And we also fixed some fencing around there. That was a project that was funded through the state mitigation funding. Part of that has to do with those fences being put in place to reduce the access to the rail corridor, because the rail corridor is a direct access to the shelter, and that is something that we are doing for safety purposes.
Matt, just as some interesting context on that, my wife grew up in Midvale, and she said when she was like 10, which I won't say how many years ago because that would be rude, they would walk along that road and those bushes were there. And she said she felt like some murderer was in those bushes and would jump out. So she's eternally grateful that X amount of years later that it's now gone. So that's how long those have been there, in some fashion.
They did find, they found things in there.
Yeah, I'm sure they did.
We'll talk about that after the meeting.
So anyways, as you may recall, the mitigation funding for many years was insufficient to cover the total cost of law enforcement. And our goal was always just to get it to the point of where it did cover the cost of the law enforcement associated with the shelter officers program. Over the last couple of years, the amount that we received from the mitigation program exceeded the amount that we needed for law enforcement and provided us with the opportunity to do several capital projects. So the sidewalk that was built along 700 West, connecting 9th Ave with essentially City Hall, was funded in large part through that program. this spider bush removal program was funded through that program. And then amongst other things, there's been some cleanup that we've been doing around that area that was funded through the program, and the grant program, the safety grant program that you have been, you approved and that you've been hearing about, where we've been providing businesses with funding in order to address issues of safety, cameras, lighting, et cetera. So this year, with the mitigation fund, we had been told to expect largely the same amount of money as we had previously. Last year, we received $3.4 million. Yesterday, we found out that the amount that we received was significantly lower than that. We do know that we're not going to be able to fund any of the non-law enforcement projects next year with the funding that we received. And Mariah and I are working with Chief Morse and Chief Mazarin to see how the amount that we received, how that'll be able to continue to fund just the law enforcement side of it. So that won't necessarily be reflected in the tentative budget discussion this evening. We're going to be continuing to work through this, and mid next week we have to kind of put a bow on the final budget that we'll be presenting with you, and we'll be working with that information until then. However, it was disappointing. The mitigation formula is derived from a point-in-time count that's done in January, where they count how many people experiencing homelessness are in your community. Second factor that plays into it is the number of individual people who receive services at the shelters and then there's a third category that has to do with the population in a community, which was added in order to benefit smaller communities like us in South Salt Lake. But as they looked through the formula this year, what ended up happening is we lost funding, St. George lost funding, but the group that received the most money this year was Ogden. We don't know why. We haven't looked into the details of why theirs jumped up so high, and it's definitely something that we're going to be looking into. But it is a change from what we've experienced over the last couple of years, and I just wanted to inform you of that. It had provided us with some great projects in our community, and next year we will not be able to fund those. I wish I had a more positive. The spider bushes are gone. We'll leave on that positive note. Okay, that's all I have for this evening.
Okay, thank you, Matt. We have a number of public hearings that I believe are noticed for 7 p.m., correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so we do have to awkwardly wait 2.5 minutes.
All right.
I think if the council's okay with it, we could move forward to approve the consent agenda items. We have 2 items on the consent agenda. Consider minutes of May 20, 2025, and consider resolution number 2024 R32 adopting the drought contingency plan. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Rory, will you call the yeses and nos?
Yes.
And nos.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Mikuláš,
Yes.
Billings,
Yes.
Robinson,
Aye.
and Glover.
Aye.
Okay, that passes unanimously, so that saved us about 45 seconds. This is the point we would have asked Brad Larson for a dad joke. I think we're going to do something very nice here for someone in the audience who was going to have to wait through a number of public hearings. But if the council is okay, could we proceed to action item A, consider resolution number 2025 R33 confirming the mayoral appointment of Brandon Anderson as the Mid-Bell City Engineer? Any objection from council?
No.
Okay, let's go ahead and do that. Adam, if you want to say a few words. Brandon Anderson is sitting in the front row here, and I will not call him anything other than Branderson moving forward.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We went through an extensive process to try to find a city engineer replacement for Keith Ludwig, who recently retired. And Brandon rose to the top of that list. We offered him the position. He started yesterday, but it cannot be official until it is basically ratified and approved by you as the council. Brandon has a number of years of engineering experience with UDOT in various regions throughout the state. He comes to us from Region 4, which covers the area from St. George north through about Sevier County, and then east and west all the way over to Moab, and then west to Nevada. So it's quite a large region. In that area, he did a number of projects, worked with a number of cities with as UDOT upgraded their facilities and has moved more into the active transportation realm. He has some experience with that, and we will look forward to that as we embark on our own transportation master plan implementation of some of those active transportation components. So he comes to us with a lot of experience, and we are happy to have him, and he's available to just answer any questions that you might have.
All right. Brandon, if you want to come up. I'll just add, this is my first mayoral appointment, so I'm very excited about that. The thing that impressed me the most about Brandon's resume, as he'll tell you in a few moments, he's worked for UDOT for 20 years.
20 years in August,
And-
it would have been.
Yeah, and I think it's a testament to his service in the public sphere. A lot of times we see resumes where someone has worked here for a year and a half and there for a year, and it's good for some people that way, but I enjoyed that you have that experience with UDOT in many different programs, I'm sure, within UDOT, and I think that's going to benefit the city greatly. So we
Yeah,
welcome you
thanks.
pending the council's approval, but if you want to go ahead. Is there
Well,
anything you'd like us to know?
Sure, yeah, like I said, I started off, I did graduate from Utah State University.
All right.
So
You got one vote.
I went to Wyoming for about 2 years and then came back to Utah and worked in different varieties. Worked down in St. George, Washington County a little bit, Richfield, and a little bit in Perry when I first came back to Utah. So, have about 20 years. Excited to be here, excited to work with the staff. It's been good to introduce and get to meet people and see the working relationships that they have, and excited to keep going that way.
We're excited to have you. Any questions? I'm looking at you, Brian, because I've already prepped him for this question.
So I take the recommendations of the staff seriously, and your resume looks great. And, glad the mayor pointed out the 20 years. So I have probably the most important question that has not been asked, though. You're an Aggie, which is great.
Yep.
But between BYU and Utah, who do you pick?
Utah.
Okay, that's good. That's all I have, Mayor.
I did not prep him on the answer. I prepped him on the question.
Just tell,
He didn't get a hair. I graduated from Utah State. I cheered for the U of U. I grew up cheering for the U of U. So
Welcome to
just
Bill.
tell him you are for the blue, the northern blue, but it's the blue.
that's right.
You now see why they're on separate ends, right?
Yeah, I can see that. So
Okay. Are there any other questions for Brandon or anything you'd like us to know? Anything else? You got fish on your tie? Are you a fisherman?
I am. This is my dad's tie.
Okay.
So that was one of the things I like to do with my dad. I like to be outdoors. I like to do things. I like to bike. I like to spend time with my family, playing games, outdoors, hunting, fishing, hiking, biking.
All right.
I just don't have time for it all.
Renaissance man. All right, this is on the agenda as an action item. You'll see recommended motion is in the packet.
I feel like we're supposed to suspend the rules when the engineer wears a tie, but we don't have to do that here, right? We just have
Not
to
this
make.
time.
Okay,
I was just going to say, I thought that's why you moved me up, because I
Yeah.
wore a tie.
yeah. Mayor, I move that we approve resolution number 2025-R-33, confirming the mayoral appointment of Brandon Anderson as the Midvale City Engineer.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Rory, we call the yeas and nays.
Yes, Councilmember Billings.
Yes.
Glover.
Aye.
Robinson. Aye. Brown.
Yes.
And Mikuláš.
Yes.
Okay, that passes unanimously. Welcome officially to
Thank you.
Midvale City.
Appreciate it.
We're happy to have you.
Probably won't stay, but thank you.
Okay. You're off the hook. We'll see you tomorrow. Oh, off the hook, fishing, okay, all right.
We
Took me
definitely, we definitely gave him a good bonus there, because otherwise this,
Yeah.
waiting through A through G could be.
Okay, well, if there are no objections, we'll go back to public hearings. Seeing none, okay, we'll go back to public hearing A, receive public comment regarding the fiscal year 2026 Midvale City adopted tentative budget beginning July 1st, 2025 and ending June 30th, 2026, and here for what we're calling the Mariah Hill Show. She might not have remembered that it's the Mariah Hill Show, but...
You took my notes. I had it.
Oh, sorry. Delete from memory. Mariah, what do you have to say?
I was going to say, good evening, Mayor and Council. Welcome to the Mariah Show, as Matt calls it.
Much better.
Okay, budget. That's what we're on. Okay, what I'm presenting here is for the public hearing, which is the tentative budget. I haven't made any adjustments to the numbers, though, like I said last time, and as Matt mentioned, this is still very much a moving document and will be until August probably, when you guys adopt the final budget. Here's our timeline for this budget year. We had a budget and strategy workshop with you all on March 20th. You adopted the tentative budget on May 6th. This is the night we're holding a public hearing as required by state code. And then on the next meeting on June 17th, you will either adopt the final budget or vote to move into truth and taxation, which is what staff will be recommending. And then we'll hold our public hearing on August 19th. That was previously August 12th, but because that's the primary election date, we changed it to the 19th, just as a note for all of you. And that's where you'll adopt the final budget and hold a public hearing and adopt a tax rate.
Can I just jump in?
Yep.
For, if anyone's confused, we are not having a primary election in Midvale. It is the county
And actually, we are going to be a voting
but we
center,
are a
is what I
voting
understand.
center
Yes.
for, very confusing, but Midvale City does not have a primary election this August.
A quick overview of the tentative budget. It is the city's estimated revenues and expenditures for each fund from July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2026, and all of our departments fall within a fund. It has been prepared by the finance department and city manager, and is officially presented to the city council by the budget officer, which is Matt. And this reflects an effort to maintain the city's current level of service in these uncertain economic times. It is a first draft, definitely a moving document at this point. We've covered a lot of the in-depth financial concepts with the council starting May 20th and ever since, just in case anyone feels like they can't possibly understand all of this. It's really high level. You guys have heard this many times at this point. And then if you have any questions, please ask. Okay, in the general fund, we have total revenues of just over $27 million. This is a decrease of 13.5% from fiscal year 2025. A lot of that is because we had some contributions from fund balance for one-time capital projects in the fiscal year 2025 budget. Of this, taxes make up about $18.3 million, licenses and permits $765,000. Our intergovernmental revenues are $4.4. That includes our homeless shelter funding as well as B and C road funds. Our charges for services are about $2.36 million. Fines and forfeitures $810,000. Miscellaneous revenue, which essentially just is interest, is $174,000, and we have a use of fund balance of about $90,000. In the general fund, the largest portion is taxes. Of that, our sales tax is about $11.3 million. What we're projecting, this is actually a 1% decrease from our fiscal year 2025 budget. We're doing that based on the actuals received and the economic trends as far as we can follow them right now. That's going to be our best guess. Our property taxes are about $3.5 million. There's no change in that in the general fund from this fiscal year. Our franchise and telecom tax makes up at about $2.77 million. This does reflect a 10% increase, and our other taxes make up about $729,000. Just some quick information on our sales taxes. The portion that Midvale gets out of the total 7.85% or whatever it is that when you buy something is 1%. That's the local use and sales tax. Of that 1%, half of that comes straight, if it's spent in Midvale, comes straight to Midvale. It's called point of sale. The other half goes into a statewide pool and is distributed based on the population of your city compared to the entirety of the state. Here you can see our historical trends for our sales tax. We did see some nice growth over the COVID years, but again, with the economic uncertainty, we're seeing some decline here. It is distributed to the city monthly, but is on a 2-month delay. So our most current actuals that we got in May are from March point of sales tax or sales taxes. This is our most susceptible tax to economic trends. And we're projecting a 1% decrease from fiscal year 2025. We still have, hopefully by the final budget in August, we will have actuals through May, and that will help us better predict. If I feel comfortable at all increasing, not having a decrease in our projections, I will do that, but I'm going to be conservative to not put us in a bad spot. For the general fund, really, things are staying generally the same. We do have a 2.2% COLA, 3% placeholder in the tentative budget. We're going to base it off of May's CPI, and we won't have that until about the middle of next week. So right now, in the tentative, it's 2.2, but the most recent numbers are 2.1. So we'll see. Next week, we'll know. It also includes a 2% merit, market and midpoint adjustments for some employees, and then a couple of new FTEs, an event coordinator, and an RDA attorney. And then our benefits, luckily we had 0% increase in our medical, and then 4.5% increase in our dental, which really overall is pretty minor. And then I did find an accounting error that saved us some money as well, so that's good. And then any other notable really increases in the general fund are that our IT equipment increased across all departments about $82,000. This is just making sure we have our switches and servers on replacement schedules, the same as we have our computers and things like that. And then we're properly budgeting our restricted revenues, which is our building revenue and our B&C road funds. And then we have one single request greater than $5,000, which is the election cost. Otherwise, there are some minor adjustments to education or memberships or things like that, but nothing greater than $5,000. And then we're having a shift. If you look at our financial statements or the budget year to year, something is going to look weird, and that's that we used to pay our public safety costs out of the general fund. Now we're trying to move that into a public safety revenue fund. And so we'll just have a large transfer into that fund to make sure we're paying all of those costs out of one fund. So that'll look different. And then really anywhere again, for the third year in a row, I think our departments had made cuts wherever they could to make sure that we're just doing what's responsible for our residents. And so 12 out of the 23 departments have a budget decrease, including the wage increases that are built in the general fund. Sorry. Okay, I'm going to go over the departments in the general fund really quickly. In our general government, which are all those departments on the right side there, the total budget is about $3.9 million. This makes up 14.5% of the general fund and has a 3.5% increase from fiscal year 25. Administrative services, which is IT, finance, and the justice court, has about $2.6 million budget, which makes up 9.8% of the general fund and has a 0.6% increase from fiscal year 25. The public works departments that are paid out of the general fund are administration, facilities, streets, and parks. That makes up $3.1 million, 11.8% of the general fund, and has a 1.6% decrease from fiscal year 2025. And community development, about $1.8 million, 6.7% of the general fund, and has an 8% increase from fiscal year 2025. And if anyone cares to have more detail than that, the line item budget is in the packet. It is a public document. Okay, here's the weird one for our transfers. I did not put the increase because it was like 1,000% or something insane like that, but it now makes up 57.2% of the general fund, $14.5 million essentially. Largest piece of that will be the transfer to the public safety fund. We also make transfers to the telecom fund and the debt service fund for debt payments. In the debt service fund, the total budget is $1.8 million approximately. This is mainly made up from revenues that come in just so that we can pay the debt on our sales tax revenue bonds, lease payments to the MBA, and a couple parking structure pass-through loans that are developer paid. So here's the public safety Special Revenue Fund. I have to get used to saying these things. But this is what we're proposing is the creation of a public safety special revenue fund to house all public safety related revenues and expenses. So this would include animal control contract, UFA emergency manager contract, UPD, and then like a tiny miscellaneous line item. And then this would be funded by a transfer from the general fund and our proposed new Midvale public safety property tax. So this property tax, it reflects an issue you guys all have heard about, which is that our public safety increases have really been straining the general fund revenue sources. And because the general fund is one big pool, then it's hard to say, oh yeah, this property tax increase is for public safety, even though on the backside I can see the numbers and say that, but it's not as transparent as it could be to the public. So because we've had to raise property taxes and probably will continue to have to do that to maintain the city's current service levels and to fund UPD, what we're proposing is to put into place a new property tax by ordinance, which is allowed by Utah Code 10133.4, where we can put in a new property tax for a specific service. So I think figuring out the timing of it all, but I think you would adopt that ordinance next meeting. And then that's what puts us into the truth and taxation process for a new tax. But I still have a little bit of research to do on that. It's a little bit different. But what will happen is that then those revenues will go into a special fund and have to be used only for that service. So they'll have to be used for public safety. Our normal truth and taxation process will apply, though there's some work behind the scenes to make sure that the wording will be right on our notices and that it shows the way we want it to on property tax notices and things like that. But we still have to do our notices, hold our public hearing, that sort of thing.
I think we need to educate our citizens of what's really happening.
Yeah,
So that they understand.
Yes,
Instead of just saying, well, we have a new property tax.
Yes, we definitely will be doing a lot of education because I'm still figuring out some of the details of like what the wording will look like and things like that. Like I said, I hope to have that in the next couple weeks. Then from there, we were talking today, the mayor, Laura, and Matt, and I will definitely be spending time to figure out what's the education outside of that. But we want to make sure the message is clear and the wording will be clear so we're not having any confusion.
Good.
Yeah. Just a quick property tax overview. The property tax is based on the assessed value of a property, which is set by the county assessor. Primary residential properties in Utah get a 45% tax exemption. Midvale residents pay property taxes to 11 different tax entities. So this will show up as a different line on, well, we'll get to that in the next page actually. We did get the 2025 average residential value in Midvale. It's $492,000, up 4.5% from last year. Makes the taxable value of the same property just over $270,000. And then unless there's new growth in the city, a taxing entity must go through truth and taxation to increase property tax revenue. Otherwise, you get the same amount of property tax as last year, and the tax rate adjusts based on property values. And then our hearing for truth and taxation is tentatively set for August 19th at 6 p.m. based on your guys' decisions. You can look at these pictures while I have a drink. Okay, here is the breakdown of what a property tax for Midvale resident looks like or did last year. I don't have all the updated rates, so this is kind of 2024. But that's what the property tax notice would look like, is it would have Midvale City property tax and then Midvale City public safety property tax. So it's still tied to Midvale. We still collect the revenue, but it will show up as a separate line. And then as you can see, it's still just a small portion of what makes up the total property tax bill for a resident. The tentative budget includes $912,243 generated from this property tax this year. This includes the fiscal year 2026 UPD increase, I think 3.44% though, because that's the number I had when we did the tentative budget, and then 3% of the fiscal year 25 UPD budget. This would make, on the average residential value, about $67 annually as an increase, and then leave the Midvale City one the same. Any questions on that? Okay. In our capital projects fund, right, the tentative budget has $1.6 million, which has some sidewalk, curb and gutter replacement, pavement management, facility maintenance, and then some money that comes in from the state for previously budgeted projects. This will be in the final budget where you see the largest jump because we didn't know where the bonding was going to fall, if it was in fiscal year 25 or 26, but the bonds and the projects will all come through in fiscal year 26. So this will jump from 1.6 million to like 60 million. So just so you're aware, like, whoa, that got crazy real quick. All right, for our enterprise funds, in the water fund, we have total revenues of $8.5 million. This is an increase of about 9.1%. This is because of a 5-year comprehensive financial sustainability plan that was passed in 2021 and had a 5-year rate increase adopted with it. So this is the final year of that plan, had 8% increases annually. In the expenditures, about 7.9 million. This is a decrease of 52%. That's mainly because of capital projects that were budgeted in fiscal year 25. This does also include the citywide salary and benefit increases. We had a $212,000 increase from Jordan Valley, and we do still have $1.3 million of new capital projects that are scheduled for fiscal year 26. In the sewer fund, total revenues of about $4.3 million, an increase of 7.8% for the same reason that they were in water, and I'm not going to say the CFSP again because I stumbled. But that plan again lapses this year. Another note with the water fund is that we have 3 different water areas, and they've all had different rate structures up to this point, and now at the end of this plan, they're all on one. They all have the same water rates amounts, so that's nice for my staff especially. For expenditures in the sewer fund, $3.9 million, a decrease of 16%, again because of those capital projects. Also has citywide salary and benefit increases and has about $35,000 in South Valley increases and scheduled capital projects of $264,000. The stormwater fund has a total budget of 2.3. This has hardly changed at all, down 0.1%, and includes citywide salary and benefit increases. The street lighting fund is just about $200,000, a decrease of 31%. That's because of a one-time budget for a streetlight master plan that's currently underway. Also has citywide salary and benefit increases. Sanitation fund at $1.6 million. This has a 0.5% increase from last year. We are proposing 2% increases to our sanitation rates, so garbages will go from $12.59 to $12.84 monthly, and recycling from $4.31 to $4.40. And then really, this is pretty great because it does encompass the new contract with ACE. I know that Glenn worked pretty hard to make sure we were working within our current budget restrictions on that one. In telecommunications, just over $1 million. This is a 3% increase. This basically is just our Utopia pledge payments. The fleet fund is just over $2 million, has a 5% decrease, has citywide salary and benefit increases, and has $1.4 million budgeted for vehicle and equipment replacement. This is one we pay for year over year over the life of the vehicles. And the information technology fund is just about $400,000, has a 33% decrease. This is because of computer replacement cycles. Also has citywide salary and benefit increases. That's all.
Thank you.
On that one. I'm still going to be here for a while.
Thanks, Mariah. Any questions for Mariah or other city staff members from the council? Okay, this is a public hearing, so if someone would like to make a motion to open this to public comment.
Mayor, I motion that we move into a public hearing.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. All those in favor of opening public comment, say aye.
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 Yes.
Any opposed? Okay, we are open to public comment. If there's anyone in the public who would like to comment, you'll be given 3 minutes. Step up to the microphone. We are a nice crowd. Seeing none, is there a motion to close public comment?
Mayor, I motion we close public comment.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. All those in favor say yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? Public comment is over. This is an item just to receive public comment. There's no action on this specifically tonight. So unceremoniously, that's the end of public hearing A. We'll move on to public hearing B, receive public comment regarding the fiscal year 2026 Midvale City Municipal Fee Schedule and Utility Rates. Mariah.
Okay, just a few quick changes on the build. You have a red line in your packet, but on the building and rental and event fee changes, we've just removed the Doll Conference Room. We don't rent that out to the public, so that's been removed. In community development, We removed MPD preliminary and final fees, adjusted the small and large scale master plan fees, removed the administrative conditional use for chickens and apiaries, removed preliminary site plan fees, added a development review committee fee, and added noticing fees per address. And the utility rate, I spoke to this earlier, but we had from the 2021 CFSP, the scheduled increases in water and sewer last year of that plan, but has put all the water areas in the same, so that they have flat rates, which is great. And then sanitation having garbage and recycling increase 2% each. And then also we increased the hydrant meter deposit because there's an increase to the cost of meters, added user-owned hydrant meter deposit fees. This is essentially so that if people use the water and they didn't pay the fee, then, so when they pay the fee, we take out the water that they used when we return the deposit back to them, but if they're using their own meter, then there was no way to capture that if they just didn't come and pay. Added hydrant meter permit application fee and hydrant meter billing, tracking, and inspection fees, because people can have them for a long time, and we want to make sure that we're keeping track of those. That's all.
Okay, thank you so much. That was much shorter than the first one.
Yes.
This is also a public hearing. Is there a motion to open the public hearing to public comment?
Mayor, I motion we open public hearing.
Second?
A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Same deal. You guys know the deal. If you want to make public comment, step up to the microphone. You'll be given 3 minutes. Seeing none, is there a motion to close public comment?
Motion to close public hearing.
Second?
Okay, motion and a second. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? This is also just for public comment, so there's no action item associated with this one. So moving right along to public hearing C, receive public comment regarding the fiscal year 2026 compensation increases for executive municipal officers. Who do we have? Mariah, it's you again.
Weird. This is from a law that was passed in the 2023 session, where we just have to put this before you. These are the appointed executive municipal officers and the proposed increases. These include the standard COLA and merit increases we're proposing, as well as a few market increases from our market analysis that we did. That's the answer.
This is also a public hearing, so is there a motion to open public comment?
Motion to move into a public hearing.
Second?
Okay, motion and a second. All those in favor of opening public comment, say aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Any opposed? Is there anyone from the public who would like to comment on compensation increases for executive municipal officers? Come on, Sue, I know that's your most burning topic. Okay, is there a motion to close public comment?
Mayor, I motion we close public hearing.
Second?
Okay, motion and a second. All those in favor of closing public comment, say aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Okay, this is also for public comment only, no action item associated with it. So moving right along. Public hearing D, receive public comment regarding setting salaries for elected and statutory appointed officers for Midvale City. And I don't even need to look up to know this is Mariah.
Another one that's just by state law, we just need to put this in front of you for public. This shows our pay ranges for all of our positions that we have in the city, and really just shows an adjustment for the 2.1% COLA. Right, Rory?
Yes.
Yep. Here you are. And this would likely be adjusted when you adopt it finally, because it will be based on whatever the COLA is based on the May CPI. So.
Okay, well, while that remains on the screen and lingers for everyone to take a look at, is there a motion to open public comment on this item?
Mayor, I motion we open public hearing.
Second?
Okay, motion and a second. All those in favor of opening public comment, say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? Are there any public comments? Okay, is there a motion to close public comment?
Motion to close public hearing.
Second?
Okay, motion and a second. All those in favor of closing public comment on this item, say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? This is also, what a broken record today. This is just for public comment. There is no action item associated with this, so we'll move on to our next public hearing. Receive public comment regarding proposed budget amendments to the fiscal year 2025 general fund and other funds as necessary. Mariah.
And we just have amendments to the general fund, actually, which I think it says something to how good our staff is at staying in budget and that we did pretty good on our budget, that these are the few small amendments we have here at the end of the year. All of these are basically one-time costs, so that's why it's accompanied by an use of fund balance as the revenue. We have computer equipment. In IT, they had a failed switch in the water department, and then we've had one-time unexpected expenses kind of throughout the IT department and other departments that totaled to about $46,000. We had to pay a piece of the election in this fiscal year, so that's the $7,000 for that. We had some litigation expenses for $75,000, and then just moving the way we have to with Harvest Days, the purchases they've made before the end of the fiscal year for the 2025 Harvest Days, and then our contract for animal control was just a little higher than what we had budgeted.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Is there a motion to open public comment?
Mayor, I motion we open public hearing.
Second?
Okay, motion and a second. All those in favor of opening public comment, say aye.
Yes?
Yes.
Aye.
Any opposed? Anyone from the public? No. Just looking over here, these are our members of the public. And here, too. Okay, seeing none, is there a motion to close public comment?
Mayor, I motion we close public hearing.
Second?
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay, again, information, public comment only, no action item associated with that. Thank you, Mariah. I hope you can drink some water and rest your voice, get some hot tea with lemon. Okay, moving on to our next public hearing. Consider amending section 17-3-1 of Midvale City Municipal Code, clarifying the application requirements for zoning map and zoning code text amendments and adjusting zoning map amendments under section 17-3-1E. Jonathan, take it away.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll do this, I'll try and keep it short. So as we, continually trying to improve the code, we noticed, and I'll just kind of touch on it briefly. So number one of the current ordinance refers to an old practice of noticing within 300 feet of a property for rezones. And as most of you know, we actually do 500, and that's adopted in our ordinance, and that was done a few years ago. So that's what prompted the majority of this amendment. So we're just clarifying what exactly is required for what exactly is required for zoning map amendment applications and zoning code text amendment applications. And as you can see in the packet, and I've got it up here on the screen for each one, what all of those are, as well as, the process for you as the council, the planning commission, or us as staff to initiate these amendments, clarifying that as well in here. The change to zoning map amendment criteria, we're just making it so that all rezones would have to meet Utah Code 10-9A-102, which currently we had it as optional for them to meet it, but in reality they really should be meeting that. So that was just the only change there. But yeah, we find that it's helping to clarify the ordinance, fixing some errors from previous changes. If you have any questions for me.
Any questions for Jonathan? Okay, well, this is not surprising, but this is also a public hearing. So if there's a motion to open the public hearing to public comment.
Mayor, I motion we open a public hearing.
Second?
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Would anyone from the public like to comment on this public hearing item? Seeing none, is there a motion to close public comment?
Mayor, I motion we close public hearing.
Second?
Okay, motion and a second. All those in favor of closing public comment on this item, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. This is not just for public comment only. We do have a recommended motion that is displayed for all to see.
Mayor, I move that we approve ordinance number 2025-010, amending section 17-3-1 of the Midvale City Municipal Code as provided in the attachments with the findings noted in the staff report. Second?
Okay, motion and a second. Rory, will you call the yeas and nays?
Yes, Councilmember Glover.
Aye.
Robinson.
Aye.
Brown.
Yes.
Mikuláš.
Yes.
And Billings.
Yes.
Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you for all the work on that. Moving on to our final public hearing of the night, consider amending section 17-7-10.12.5 of the Midvale City Municipal Code to replace figures 1 and 2 in the Jordan Bluff sub-areas 1-3 development zone. Jonathan.
Thanks, Mayor. So this is, you'll see more of this later in the agenda with the development agreement with Gardner. So this is an application by them to amend the current figures in the ordinance for the Jordan Bluffs. As you can see here, this is in your packet, but on the screen, the left is the old figure, on the right is the new. So just some reconfiguring of the pods, where the public park is and such. And that's also the same with the road map that's in the ordinance. So this is for the development agreement. The new ones would match the amendments that are going forward tonight. If you have any questions, they're here and I can answer anything as well.
Any questions for Jonathan or for the developers?
Remember, this is where we need to not take the action. Sorry.
While you're discussing this, can you explain what the difference between those two maps are?
Yeah,
And
sure.
what they're asking for?
So the biggest difference is the road setup over here between pods A and B. And then also with the way that this development is moving forward, splitting into a pod B1, B2, and then just various, alignments. Part of this was driven by our old city engineer, Keith Ludwig, proposed road layouts to be safer for when they get built and stuff like that. And Dave can also answer that as well.
Dave Dennison, Gardner Company. Good evening, Mayor and Council. The other thing we were asked to clarify was the park. If you notice, the public park was pretty spread out, and it was always designated to be 15 acres, but we had never really exactly figured how that would work. And on the new figure, it's precisely 15 acres, and we've got it all kind of figured out as far as the park and everything, so we've really clarified that.
It looks, and I know this scale of beats everything, it just looks like there's a lot less park. If the scales were the same, there's less park than there was.
It is confusing because it was kind of just a general pod figure that wasn't super accurate, and I don't know, it was prior to me working on this, and so we really clarified that. And I assure you that the new public park is exactly 15 acres as specified. And it also maintains the 125-foot minimum width right there that is designated as well.
Thank you, Dave.
So I will say, on lines with what Councilmember Glover's sort of getting at, what's a little challenging, or I don't know if that's the right word, generally is the vision of this has changed drastically from the very first iteration we received. Almost like, it feels like almost a decade ago, it was 8 years ago, I had hair the first time. Not even joking. I looked at old pictures and I sure did. And, there was going to be this it set up off to the side, which I'm still sort of, I don't love. It was going to be very much in the middle. It was going to be surrounded by office buildings. And there's just been a lot of changes. And every time we see these maps, and I think with the other discussions we'll have too, it'll sort of appear that way. It's one thing we've been pushing with the residents to, not necessarily, they were very upset when this first came out. A lot of people came out to speak for various times and reached out. And I think we kind of sold them on this whole area. There's this sort of public benefit between, there will be commercial and what would that look like? And there'll be this big giant park. And what will that look like? And it feels like every time we get a new map, there's we don't even discuss commercial anymore, and the park's shrinking. So what it feels like is we're just, every time we're getting less and less, whether that's true or not, like, and what you're saying is, the goal is 15 acres and this is 15 acres, but you have to understand from a resident standpoint, we've been going to bat for 7.5 years for this to say, this is what this is going to be. And now I'm under the impression that none of that is what that's going to be. There's going to be this park on the side and a lot of apartments, right? And I know you'll say, no, we're working on it and COVID, but you have to kind of at least appreciate why this, like, residents are going to start being frustrated, like, hey, this was a bait and switch. Like, we would rather have just stayed at Dirtfield. Like, I'm not joking that people have said that to me. Like, if it's just going to be, 3,000 apartments with nothing else for us but cause more traffic and not necessarily providing a lot of the tax yet because the tax increment, like, we would have been more vocal, And so I think we need to consider that every time we come in with these photo changes and these updates, that if the end game is really just going to be a bunch of apartments and less public space, so to speak, whether that's the park or, various commercial pieces from anywhere from food to whatever. I think a lot of people thought that was coming. And I mean, as far as today goes, I don't think I could tell a resident that any of that's coming. And so I don't know what any suggestions on how we can handle that and maneuver that would be great, because, I would like to see some, meaningful update to that.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Councilman Brown. I think part of the impetus behind this was as we were working on our first phases, which is Pod A, B1, and B2, you can see that Saguini Drive, we were asked to actually connect those. And on the old one, you'll notice they didn't actually connect. So as we start working with staff and getting into the weeds, it's kind of a give and take. And I know it feels like we're getting all the benefit, but a lot of it is we're trying to work with staff to align the roads and kind of make sure, because as we get into the details with how the buildings lay out and the roads, we do have to make some changes, and that's kind of what we've done with pods A, B1, and B2. And we feel like we've worked with staff really well to get that kind of where we need. And in the process, we kind of looked at the other side and said, well, we've finished a few acres of the park on the north side up by Zions. We had a wonderful grand opening. It's been deeded over to the city. And every time I've been over there, it's heavily used. It's actually a great asset, I feel, to the city. And Zion's Bank Corp is here to stay. They're not going anywhere, and neither are we. We want this area. It's like your slogan says, Midvale's the center of everything, and it's a great location. We've got a certain amount of residences that we have been approved for, and we've designed the vac station for. So the vac station is actually designed, to take all of that sewage waste, and it's designed for that. What we're trying to do, and actually, just so you know, as we've spent a lot of time with our designers and architects laying this out, I don't know if we could actually hit the density that we've been allowed to hit. So there'll probably be, in the end, some excess capacity in that sewer back station. So I would just say to the residents that are concerned, we're still planning on doing our high street. We're still planning on having offices on that north side to complement the Zions, have retail kind of blend in and then come into the residences, so you have kind of a mixed use. And then as you do get into the south, there will be more residential because they are approved for that. But we really are trying to massage it and work with staff. So some of it is staff related, some of it is us, and we're just trying to make it feel really well. And down the road there probably will be a few more tweaks as we work through the roads, and I think that's just part of developing this large of a piece of property. And we're doing our best. We're still focused on it. Unfortunately, we have had to deal with a few hiccups, with the market. But as far as our plan, we're still planning on doing office, we're still planning on doing the high street, and as much retail as we can. And that's what I would probably say to the residents is we're doing our best.
It's just hard because at one point we had these renderings with 6-story office buildings, all around a park, right? And now it just feels like, this is what they can see because these are packets that they can get, and now it's kind of like a square one. That's what it looks like to them,
Yeah.
right? And so what I appreciate what you were saying about the resident capacity. What worries me is you, in theory, could probably fill out everything in the long term with with just homes in some kind because you're not hitting that density. And so I just want to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, we talk a lot about this project. Every Monday we have an all hands meeting and we talk about this project every Monday. Some weeks I get teased a little more than others because nothing is happening. But we've talked a lot about office, and if you look at the last few years in the entire valley, there hasn't been a lot of office built anywhere. We actually had a tenant that took some space in Draper, and we built the Baltic Point building. It's a mass timber office building that we built, and we are trying to bring some of that here. It's a 6-story office building, and we're trying to bring it here. And I assure you, as soon as we have a 75,000 or larger tenant, we will start adjusting our pods on that north side and start building as soon as we do. And we're fairly optimistic that the market's going to change. If you look at some of the absorption of Class A office space, a lot of it, there's a lot of subleases that are going on around the valley. We feel that in the next few years that's going to change, and we're hopeful that it will change sooner than later. And as soon as it does, we are, we're kind of office developers at heart, and so we've kind of poised these pods so that we can switch gears quickly and get working on the offices as quickly as we can. The office is kind of what helps the RDA, helps it perform, and we realize that. We don't want it to be, if it's a performance-based product, and if it's all residential, we don't really hit our goals. And plus, we want this to be a mixed use, to have that feel of office, retail, and residential. So we're very aware of it. We watch the market really closely as far as, what the office market is doing, and we're constantly working with some of our larger tenants even to see if they want to come out here. One thing we are positive about is the location. This is such a great location in the valley, right in the middle. It's every time we do studies, and we just feel that it's just a great location. So we're very positive about it. It has been a couple of years. It's been pretty rough. So, but we're still maintaining the vac station. And we're trying to do a good job, be good neighbors, and keep the kind of the homeless population out of the fields, because that is a big problem. A few weeks ago, I was out there with Sergeant Chacon, and we were working on cleaning up another homeless encampment that had kind of tucked their way down into our repository at the south end of the park. So we are trying to be good neighbors and working diligently to make this a really good development.
And I agree. I think almost any developer in any major city or county across the nation would say you have all these acreages, right, where your tracks and freeways all come together, and I'm just very passionate that if it's just 3 to 5 story housing, that's a very big miss, right, without having a lot of other opportunities, especially for the residents.
We agree.
Dave, is there any reason, I understand the struggles with office space in the current economy, but as someone who lived directly east of Pod D for about 2 years, what I always found that was missing, Parkview, what I always found that was missing in this very contained area where there are a lot of people, a lot of younger folks working, just anything, a pizza place, a coffee shop, anything at all, I think would be majorly successful in that area. One, there's plenty of people who living there now who would frequent any establishment there. And I always felt, to be honest, that's why I left Parkview, because I felt like, you're paying a premium to live in these new apartments, and there's just not a lot of, other than, the gym is nice at Parkview, the hot tub is nice at Parkview, but there's nothing to, get a coffee or get a slice of pizza or anything like that without honestly getting into your car and driving somewhere to do it, because, the nearest shopping center is Winco. And there were some times I would walk to Winco, but if you're going for major groceries, I don't want to walk back with 80 pounds of groceries in my arms. So is there a reason why there just hasn't been even the slightest focus on one or two retail options for the folks who are already living there in large numbers?
We work with our brokers, retail brokers, office brokers, and we're actively trying to work with them and get things out there. If we, like I said, if we have a retail tenant that's ready, we would actually go as well. Same thing for a leased product or whatever. We would definitely jump on that. We've worked on a few deals. They haven't actually come to fruition yet, but we want the same thing.
Okay, I appreciate that. Any other questions for Dave or staff or me or anyone? Okay, this is also a public hearing. We will proceed with public comment if there's a motion.
Mayor, I motion we go into public hearing.
Second?
Okay, motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? All right, we will take public comment if there is any. Sue? Just state your name for the record, and you'll be given 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Sue Armitage. This is the first I've seen of this. I think I moved into Midvale maybe about the time this was proposed, and I just wasn't aware of it then. So what I noticed right away is, because I live in the northeast part of Midvale, this park, an open space near the river, is lovely. And it's yet another recreational green space amenity on the west side of Midvale. And in the northeast quadrant, we have nothing. We have a canal that's filled with litter and plastic bottles and trash. And along the side of it is an overgrown, weed-ridden dirt path that's only made by people walking their dogs and the occasional old resident who is curious about the community. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention, that this would make a great green space for the west side, which already has great green spaces, and we have nothing. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment, Sue, and it's very well noted. Anyone else would like to make public comment? State your name for the record. You'll be given 3 minutes as well.
Hi, my name is Luke Maines. As someone who frequents the Jordan River Trail, especially right on this section, I'm excited to hear that there's a park there. Though, some people have mentioned, the park here where it spans the whole length of the river seems a little bit more appealing than this one where it feels like it's shoved mainly back behind everything and by Zion's. I've been to the public park by Zion's, but the way it's positioned, I wasn't aware that it was a public park. It kind of feels like it's like a recreational space for Zion's employees. So I think that could be something to make clear. And in the discussion about mixed use, I hear, I mean, I'm not an expert on this, but I heard a lot about, like, we're building residential here, and we're building, retail here, potentially food. And that's great, but in my mind, true mixed use is like, you got retail on the bottom and things above it, like 3/1s, like where it's the same place, not a slightly closer than the nearest thing. So I don't know what the zoning rules are or anything like that, but as a member of the community, I would love this thing to be a new place that I can go and get food and go to the park there, since I do frequently go down that area, especially down the river. But it sounds like it might not be as appealing in the final product unless there's really like a lot of focus on making it a thing for the public. So that's my thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you, Luke. And I will say this council has been very cognizant of that fact and has been pushing for those options that you mentioned. Are there any other public comments? Looking at the one person who hasn't commented yet. Okay. No pressure. Okay, he's not standing up. Is there a motion to close public comment?
Mayor, I motion that we close the public hearing.
Second?
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor of closing public comment, say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? Public comment is closed. For this, there is an action item. However, Matt's pointing at me. We're going to table that as long as. Okay, let's let Matt speak. Yes, please do.
Thank you. As you may have noticed, there are, between this and the RDA agenda, there are 3 associated items. There is the zoning code text amendment. There is a second amendment to amended and restated master development agreement. And then there is a tax increment reimbursement agreement on the RDA agenda. In some ways, these 3 things are all united, and so there's a ordering that we want to do. While we did put the action underneath the public comment, as sort of what we normally do, the thing is that the code text amendment is something that if we approve it, then it becomes ordinance. But because we also want to make sure that the development agreement and the tax increment reimbursement agreement, particularly the development agreement amendment, are executed, we want to discuss those items first, specifically the amended and restated development agreement, because within that there are terms that, once approved, there are benefits to the city that come along with that. We'll get into more detail on it, but it is additional funding for the park. It has to do with ownership issues related to the back station on the property, as well as another issue that I'm suddenly blanking on. But and we also are going to, in the tax increment reimbursement agreement, receive property associated with the public works building. And so if we approve the ordinance and then those other agreements are not signed, which we don't think is a high likelihood, but it could mean that the ordinance goes into place, but we wouldn't necessarily get all of the benefits of it. And so what we would recommend is that the next thing that you would do would be to consider the development agreement. And if that is amenable to the council and you want to proceed with that, then the next issue has to be one of either saying, do you think that the likelihood of approval without the development agreement being signed, approve the zoning and then the development agreement not being signed, is a low enough potential that you're okay approving both, if you wanted to approve them. I don't want to go too far there and say that that's what you're going to do. And then if you think that there is a level of risk and you would rather table the approval of the zoning ordinance until the next meeting, until after the development agreement and the tier are signed, if approved, then we could go down that route. Did I describe that correctly, Garrett?
I hope so.
Okay. So, does anyone have any questions about that? And if no, then we would look to table the action item on this and then move to the development agreement.
But just to make it clear that it is a very temporary tabling, because some tablings require, and it not bringing it up until a subsequent meeting.
Well, that's what,
That could be if we want a development agreement.
Yeah. But the development agreement is
Is it a-
action item C.
Is it already done, the development agreement?
But what if we want to make adjustments to the development agreement or something?
I think it makes the most sense to, yes, table, go to the development agreement now,
see what the outcome is on that.
see what the outcome is, and then possibly go back to the action item under the public hearing.
Okay, I can, would you like me to motion?
If you can cobble that motion together, good for you.
Mayor, I move that we table public hearing item F, amending considering the amendment to section 17-3-1.
It's G.
Oh, G, sorry. Is it G?
It's G.
Yeah.
We're tabling G, not
Tabling
F?
G.
F was the
Correct.
text amendment.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah, okay. Sorry, I'll start again. Mayor, I move that we table public hearing G, consider amending section 17-7-10.12.5 of the Midvale City Municipal Code to replace figures 1 and 2 in the Jordan Bluffs sub-area 1 through 3 development zone.
Second?
Okay, there's a motion and a second. I will turn to Garrett quickly. Good, okay. Does that require a roll call?
We should do a roll.
Okay, let's do a roll call.
Councilmember Robinson.
Aye.
Brown.
Yes.
Mikulesh.
Yes.
Billings.
Yes.
And Glover.
Aye.
Okay, that is temporarily tabled. We'll go to action items, and if there are no objections, we'll skip B for now and go to action item C. Consider resolution number 2025-34, approving a second amendment to amended and restated master development agreement for the Jordan Bluffs project. Any objections to proceeding to that? Seeing none. Adam, tell us about the second amendment.
All right, thank you. I was expecting it to be a little bit later, but here we are. So thank you, Mayor and Council. I will give a brief rundown and explanation of what this proposed second amendment to the amended and restated master development agreement for Jordan Bluffs proposes. I will also touch on the TIRA, which will be further discussed in the RDA meeting, but because all three of them really go hand in hand, I feel that we really should touch on that. The TIRA, for those of you who don't know, tax increment reimbursement agreement. And so I'll touch on that and kind of what it does and how they all interrelate. So if we go back to 2004, that was when an original development agreement for the Jordan Bluffs area was approved. Jumping ahead to 2017, the Gardner Group acquired the Jordan Bluffs project area, and an amended development agreement was approved and enacted. 2 years later, in 2019, an amended and restated development agreement was approved and enacted. And then again, a year later, there was a first amendment to that amended and restated development agreement. Largely what all of this did was, as the concept changed over time due to either market conditions or just preferences of development, the development agreement and associated documents were basically amended to reflect the most current vision of what the development was. And that's where we are today. We are considering a second amendment to that amended and restated development agreement. So what the proposed second amendment does, or actually why we have it because, as you know, we have discussed quite a bit in the past the COVID-19 pandemic and what kind of resulted from that. There were changes in the real estate and construction markets, and the developer, Gardner, has proposed to change the overall plan to reflect our current reality and market conditions. You saw that a little bit when Jonathan was explaining the text amendment to amend the exhibits. Largely, it stayed the same, but the park area remained 15 acres. It was condensed to basically make a more usable and centralized park. The second amendment to the development agreement proposes the following. It does quantify improvements for that central community park area. It provides a price cap for those improvements at $13.5 million. The previous development agreement capped it at $6 million. So we are, that is increasing quite a bit. That's just a reflection of current costs. It also proposes that that cap of $13.5 million be increased by 6% to account for inflation each year until the park improvements are complete, which there's a completion date on or before October 31st of 2031.
Adam, I have a question about that. Sorry, I just don't want to lose train of thought. We were always sort of told that the park was going to be built as things next year were going to be built, kind of carry through. Is that like wishful thinking that other buildings will be there, or no matter what, they're just going to sort of plan to do the park up until that time?
The park, it's still going to be completed as the pods next to it are developed. And again, the agreement, or the proposed agreement, proposes a completion date of that. Gardner feels that that's when those phases will be complete. There's also another trigger date in there before that 2031 date that if they aren't at a certain percent, we have to come back and renegotiate what that park looks like, and if it just gets built out at that period or if we're willing to extend it further. So there is that trigger date in there if there's a certain level of improvements that aren't done. The proposed amendment also provides a timing for the transfer of the vac station to the city. It also outlines repair obligations of Gardner with that transfer and a reimbursement period of 1 year if there's defects and what those defects are, and how we go about getting reimbursed to fix those should that arise. It also proposes an updated concept plan, which is what we just looked at for the text amendment. Also with the community park, there's an exhibit with a location and a comprehensive list of what those park improvements are and how we get to that $13.5 million figure. There's also an updated phasing plan, which shows those development phases and then each segment of that park that would be improved and dedicated at the time of the development of those pods. And so with that, I'll go through what those are. Really on your left, that's just a kind of a closer view of the park improvements. I know it's not the most clear. And then to the right, it's basically the park layout and how it interacts with the overall development concept. Let's see. Is there a pointer on this? I know you'll have to turn around to see this, but this area is the area of the park that was just recently improved and dedicated to the city when Zions was done. So that exists, and so then what you see south of that are the future phases that will be done as pods develop. Adjacent to the park, so the park will be owned and maintained by the city, but the concept still provides for open space to be all along that western and southern bluff area. So the hillside, the slope itself will remain open. So that has not changed from the previous concept. What has changed is the park being, I don't want to say condensed, but it's in a more usable configuration. And what was not mentioned before, and I know there was I believe Councilmember Brown, you had brought up that the park kind of used to go all the way around the south end. What was also found out that was kind of in violation of that own development agreement in which it was approved because it provided a minimum width of the park area. And in that exhibit, or how the park was laid out, it was much narrower than what the development agreement even required. And so that minimum width is still being met in the current configuration of the park, or the current proposed configuration of the park. Here's the updated concept plan that was just discussed. So you can see that open space area still exists around the slope of the cap area. And then you can see the city park area that will be owned and maintained by the city in the lighter green. And then the adjusted pod configuration and naming of the pods. So here's a phasing plan. This is for proposed phase 1. This is something that you'll actually see in the near future should the development agreement or this amendment to the development agreement be approved. Phase 1 will be coming in shortly thereafter. The Planning Commission has looked at this. It has moved as far as it can in the process until this development agreement is approved, and then you will see the phase 1 and its associated sub-development agreement. Phase 2 is basically the southern half area of that cap and hilltop. So you can see then the southern and eastern side of the park will be done along with pods I and L. Phase 3 is again a more central location and then in its associated park improvements. And then phase 4 is the final phase, which will finish out the park and finish out the project itself. These are all exhibits in this amendment to the development agreement. With that, so what I'd like to do now, and even though we will discuss this a little more in the RDA meeting, I wanted to touch on the TIRA and what it is and what it proposes to do, what the amendment does. So there was an original TIRA approved in November of 2017, and then in July of 2020 there was a first amendment to that TIRA because of the development of Zions and their technology center. So with the second amendment to the TIRA, it proposes to increase the reimbursement cap to $53.3 million from nearly $41 million. Along with that, it proposes that the VAC station that's been constructed be eligible for reimbursement costs. The figure is there, roughly $5.4 million, when Lot 2, which in a previous agreement, Lot 2 is basically all of the undeveloped area that's remaining in the project. When Lot 2 reaches an assessed building valuation of $194 million. Along with that, there is a proposal to quit claim, through a quit claim deed, some property that is needed for the Public Works expansion to the agency, and that will be accomplished by June 30th, so within this month. And this is just an exhibit of that small area that will be needed for the Public Works expansion. It's just south of Ivy Drive and then west of 700 West or Main Street. I know that's a lot. I kind of went over that at a higher level, but I'm happy to dive in and answer any questions you might have. Gardner is also here to answer any questions. And if there's an exhibit you'd like me to kind of go back to, I can either go to a concept plan or the park plan or just wherever you'd like to go with this. So.
I guess my question is if they don't meet those caps or those amounts, then what? I mean, right now, it's been stalled for how many years, and there's no guarantee that, at least I don't see one, that they're gonna meet those.
Correct, there is no guarantee. So let's just bring up the TIRA, for example. If that, for instance, if the assessed building valuation never reaches the $194 million, then there would be no reimbursement cost for the VAC station itself. And the reimbursement cap of 53.3 up from the nearly 41, again, it's all dependent on things being built and developed. So if nothing changes, or if very little changes, that will never be reached.
Okay, I just want to make sure, I mean, I want it done, okay, so do you. But there's been such a long time that we haven't done anything out there. I'm just concerned that, you know, are you really going to be able to do this?
I will say, just in fairness, there are things being done right now. So if you haven't been back there, like they're going vertical on Ivy, Sagini now. So there is action happening there. So I don't want people to think that the developer's not doing anything at all currently. There is action.
And again, as I mentioned, that phase one, assuming this gets approved, whether in this form or some similar form, you'll be seeing phase one very shortly, within the next, I would say, few months, for sure.
Adam, remind me, so Pod K, to me, that's a huge, like 20-something acres, right? And it's not that close to the park. I mean, it's kind of close to the park. Does our zoning, would they probably have to provide some green space-ish for, not from a public accommodation, but for the, if they build like a bunch of apartments right there, because I think that, we envision that being more residential down there.
Yeah, that's always been envisioned as a little more residential, at least on that southern end at the toe of the hill. But yeah, the development code, for lack of a better term, it does require certain green or certain open space amenities and certain features and improvements to be done with those developments as they occur.
So I'm less worried about the park overall. I mean, it looks kind of bad, for lack of a better term, since, before it was this full encompassing one. But I think from a public standpoint, they'll get a pretty good use. And like I said, Pod K will probably have their own.
They would have their own internal system, yeah.
And that's fine. That'll offset. And it'll still look, I'm guessing, pretty nice. I think there's a lot of good in this give and take here that I like. I'm worried that it's not going to hit the numbers. This isn't extending the how many years was it? The tax reimbursement? Was it 20?
25.
And it's still that same timeline, right?
So, and then we got 2 additional years. Sorry, the original was 25.
Yeah.
There's been 2 additional years approved through the legislature that could be applied to this.
So 27 years total. And that's not being touched here, from my understanding, right? That it's the same timeline. And the other thing I would like is, I think the commercial or whatever you want to call it, the office, retail, anything that's non-residential seems really like Pod 4, right? Or not Pod 4, Pod E and F, right? So that would be phase 4, right? So that just seems.
Yeah, it looks like phases 3 and 4 would have the majority of commercial.
Yeah, and that just seems really far. I just want some assurance that that's still the plan for those. I know he came up and said it, but I would like something that says, this is still going to be the case, right? Because I just don't want phases 1 and 2 to happen, and then, even though it's the year 2040, COVID happened 20 years ago, we can't build, anything else here, and then council's like, I guess we'll approve residential. Like, I just want some assurance in that 3 and 4 somehow, that there is going to be that mixed use, commercial, retail still, right? And I don't know how to do that.
I think one of the incentives that I see for commercial happening is if the commercial doesn't happen, I just don't see there being a path forward to even reaching the cap that's proposed in the TIRA. So
even the minimum, if we didn't change it, even the smaller number, right?
I just don't see that. I mean, I feel like that's an incentive on their end to even get close to that, even as it currently is.
Yeah, I mean, I sound negative. There's a lot in this agreement and this idea that I do like. I just want to make sure that is for sure going to happen still, right?
Understood.
But as we go through each pod, we'll be able to review that, right?
Each one will have its own subdevelopment agreement that does come before you. Mm-hmm. And so you'll see those plans and associated development agreements.
But it could end up being where none of the 5 of us are on council anymore, and we're all very passionate about it. Like, we've been on it from day one, and that we could lose it. That's why it sounds nice to be able to say that, but that's what worries me.
Is this in the 2016 general plan? Like this type of description of what we want for this area?
Yeah, I believe even when that general plan was approved, there was a version of this, and it was fairly similar.
We've gone through a lot of.
And honestly, there are versions of this that I am happy that we are where we are today. That if some former versions were developed, I think.
Because I feel like that's the guiding principle, if we're all not here.
Yeah.
When we get to that point is if we want that type of zoning or that type of development, that we could put it in that plan, right? And that's what we hand off to the next council if we're not here, that they use as their guiding principles.
Yeah, that and whatever, let's say this development agreement or this amendment to the development agreement's in effect, that would also play a huge role as well.
I guess, Go ahead.
I was just saying, I also like the park too as more condensed because I think it makes it more accessible. When it was really long, like trying to get to those different areas within the pods, I think could be a challenge for those that are just there to use the park. It feels like that a little bit on the Jordan River Trail, like trying to find within the neighborhoods how to access it. But once it's condensed like that and everything's in a central place, I think it makes it easier for folks to get to it. Just my personal opinion.
And there's also an economy of scale when it comes to our ownership and maintenance. When it is more condensed, we're not losing any park area, but we have a bigger chunk in one area, which makes it does make it easier for maintenance.
So I like the direction.
And I wouldn't mind if we could somehow explain this to the residents, what's in here. I mean, look, there's an amphitheater, a splash pad, like these are, if this goes in the development agreement, those are being done, right? It's not.
Yep, and that's another reason the park improvements cap was adjusted quite a ways up. The previous the development agreement that's in effect today caps that, I believe, at 6 million, which, yeah. So this is I feel is an improvement, plus the adjustment for inflation.
What I'm reading is there's 0% chance Glenn would ever be employed here by 2030, though.
What was that?
To be over this entire maintenance on this, because there's a lot here. Yeah.
Glenn's actually looking at retirement.
Yeah, right. He's on Indeed.com probably.
Okay, I guess I like the concept. My concerns are, again, is make sure that you get the development done so that you can get your reimbursement and we can get what we want. I know that's what you need to do, but it's like this park is taking forever. I mean, I don't see it coming to fruition very soon, and it's like I want something happening on the park.
Yeah, and we do too, and we have like Adam said, we've taken our first phase through Planning Commission as far as we can. We want to get that first phase going. Then you start getting some momentum. Our partner in the first phase is Wasatch, and we sold them the property on the north side of Ivy. They are moving right now. Those units right there are on cap, if you will. That's a description we use that we know it's going to have to be tied into the vac station. Those units will be tied in. We want units to be tied in so that that equipment can start being used instead of just being sitting there idle. We are frantically trying to work. We spent $5.3 million on the vac station, and the reason we did it is because we thought by now we would have 1,000 units already between Wasatch and Gardner, and it's just taken. It's not all administration, but it does take a lot of time to get all of this TIRA and all this development agreement through, and kind of make sure it's done thoughtfully and done well. And like Adam alluded to, as soon as we can get this development agreement done, we'll be back here with Wasatch to submit for our large scale master plan for the first phase. That's I think it's like, see, now I've got so many numbers in my head, I can't remember exactly, but I think it's around, the first phase is 265, 270 units. And it will feel really good with that north side of Ivy being done right now with Wasatch. And we're trying to phase it so that the absorption happens really naturally so that we're not competing on the north side and the south side. We're really trying to stagger this and do it thoughtfully. So we are trying to get it. Once we get some momentum there and get some units hooked up to the vac station, and we understand that the city doesn't want to take over a vac station that's just sitting there. We have actually spent, I think it's around $10,000 or $15,000 a month to exercise all the equipment, to have them professionally maintained, and we're maintaining that every month to make sure it's in working order. And part of the development agreement, we are saying that we will additionally warrant for an additional year after it's turned over to you. So if there's a problem with the equipment, we will warrant that. So we feel like We've created a good document. Matt mentioned there was a few other benefits as far as clarifying the park, making sure we get enough money that's actually going to work. I mean, back in 2021 and 2022, we had some really bad inflation going on, and costs were going out of control. And some of this park equipment it's the splash pads, amphitheater's very expensive, but it allows for some of that with this. And we feel, along with the ground that you as a city will be getting for your public works, we feel like it's a good agreement. So we really are trying to go as quickly as we can. We're trying to go as quickly as the market will allow us to.
I guess the one other question for, I guess, Glenn or whatever would be, what's it gonna cost us to maintain this system once we've got it?
It would be utilities and labor. I'm not sure what the professional monthly cost is.
Well, when the equipment's being used, it's designed to be used. It has very long shelf life, and it's designed to be used. But when things just sit there, it's like a $500,000 generator that sits next to an office building. Those have to be maintained because they literally just sit there. And if they just sat there for a few years, when there was a problem, they wouldn't turn on. You have to exercise the gaskets. And when the vac station is working, it will be easier to maintain.
We'll also have new utility revenue from new accounts, and moving forward, we'll build it into a replacement plan because we're looking at some new software for that stuff.
And there is a bit of a trade-off with that vac station, the way that it's designed. There'll be more maintenance with the vac station itself, but less maintenance on the pipes. I won't get into the technicalities of it all, but there will be less maintenance on the pipes because it's kind of a self-cleaning system. But the vac station will be a technical challenge for a while.
Sorry. Oh, go ahead.
Do you foresee extending sort of the solar panels on the cap, or on the slope more, because the slope's kind of unusable, right? Like, that's something I've always wondered. Or is it sort of there? Is it not as useful as you were hoping? Is it?
Well, we did that in conjunction with Zions Bank. If we had a tenant that sustainability is important, like Zions Bank, we try to accommodate that and do anything we can to bring in more solar. We've actually got a warehouse full of solar panels that we're trying to use up. So,
Okay, so
we're actively trying. It's just, it's difficult to say what's going to happen without having the tenant and get that agreement in place.
So it's tenant specific,
It
not
is,
necessarily
yeah.
guys. Okay.
Yeah.
I just wasn't sure how that worked.
Yeah, Zions owns that and they love it. It's a huge benefit to them and to the community.
Any other questions from the council? Or the city manager?
Yeah, I just want to add one more thing on this too, is the point is well taken from the public when there was comments about the need for us to find ways to create open space on the east side of the city. We are currently working on the open space plan for the city, which is going to look at how we can work on expanding what we're providing throughout the city. And as you can see, in a variety of different ways, our goal is to implement these plans as we get them done. So like that is something that is an objective on our part. At the same time, there's been a lot of comments today about how do we explain to the public the situation with regards to what we're doing here. And it's just important to reiterate that there are legal requirements about how we utilize funding in this area, and that the development of the open space has to be tied to this development. So we couldn't necessarily like say you have to build a park somewhere else in the city while you're building this. And so we're taking advantage of the opportunity to work with the developer and utilize those very specific funding sources that are approved by the state that allows us to do that work here. And so this isn't at the loss of us doing open space work in other parts of the city. it's taking advantage of what we can do here now. I hope that made sense.
Matt, and on that note, with this park in particular, which I like the idea, so this will sound, not intended to sound negative, but more in response to the community, is it's sort of on the edge of our city, next to the river. So besides a very select group of people, most residents that will use this will have to drive there, right? Which is fine. Like, I think it's perfectly fine to drive to a park, where some other parks in our city are right in the middle of the whole neighborhood. So, you know, granted, we need something on the east side, but I would say people a street over, just because of the way this is built, like if they're on Holden, they're probably gonna have to drive to this park, right? So this one feels like a park that, probably people from West Jordan that might come over too, you know, the apartments over by Gardner Village and whatnot. So, you know, I look at this one as a little bit of a different park in the sense that it will be, you know, people are gonna have to make an effort to go there, and I think they will with all these amenities.
Councilmember Mikalash and I will be walking there.
I was gonna say, just
Yeah.
based on the traffic of the trail right now, it'll very much be used. I mean,
Yeah.
there's already so much traffic on the trail.
People drive to.
They do just drive to walk the trail or bike the trail, so I think it'll be definitely utilized.
Yep.
Any other questions for anyone?
Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to say real quick, you know, a lot of times I remember as a council member, you see items like this and don't appreciate just how much time has gone in behind the scenes with Adam and his group and Matt and the developer. I know they were in a meeting today for about an hour and a half or so. So this is the product of countless hours of negotiations between the city and the developer, and I think the product that we have here today is a good product, and it is also a testament to the council as well, those of us who were on the council when these pods were initially brought forth. I think we did a great job in pushing some of this developments, and now I think everyone is wanting to push more, and I think hopefully, depending on what the council votes tonight, that we can, you know, really start to get the product that we're all looking for. So thank you to everyone, Adam, Matt, Garrett, the developers, for, you know, it's one of those things that not everyone has gotten what they wanted out of this, and that's sometimes how negotiations, you know, are successful, when not everyone is thrilled in the room. So we appreciate all the work that's gone into that. This is on the agenda here as an action item. There is a motion for your consideration in the packet.
I move that we approve resolution number 2025-R-34, approving the second amendment to amended and restated master development agreement for Jordan Bluffs.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Rory, we call the yeas and nays.
Yes, Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Mikalash.
Yes.
Billings.
Yes.
Glover.
Aye.
And Robinson.
Aye.
Okay, that passes unanimously. So with that, there is a specific motion to take from the table the item that we previously tabled. If the council wants to do that, the motion is to take from the table the motion related to, and then it's the item that we,
G, right?
G, yeah. So,
Do I need to move to untable it first, or can I just move to do it?
So I think that's what the mayor was trying to specify. Move to take from the table, I think is what he was saying.
So I just wanted to, as a quick reminder, is that if you're ready to approve, once you approve the ordinance, it is in effect, but the agreement has not been signed yet. And so if you table it to the next meeting, we could then work on getting the agreements, if you approve the tier, this and that signed, and then we can bring that back for consideration at that time. Or if you feel comfortable that they're not going to not sign the agreement and wanted to approve the ordinance tonight, you can do that.
may I recommend we could also, different option, approve the action item tonight that we previously tabled, and then just add the language pending the signed development agreement.
Is that allowed, Garrett?
No.
Why not?
So the reason being is because this is a piece of legislation, if that condition never happens, we have an ordinance that sits in limbo forever. We never know when it's gonna go into effect or not. For Rory's purposes, for noticing and all of that sort of thing, we just have this ordinance on the books that we don't know if will ever go into effect. So for that reason, we need some amount of certainty.
So you could say pending a signed development agreement within 60 days? And then if
I think
60
you're
days-
better off just tabling until next meeting.
Next meeting, and then if they needed to bring something, we could suspend the rules for them.
Yeah.
Right? That's what I would prefer to do, right? So it wouldn't slow anything down. Right? Because if that's right, that would be that would be the problem. If we waited 2 weeks, and they came in and then we approved and then we had to wait another 2 weeks, that could slow something down, right?
You've already done the public hearing tonight, so in 2 weeks, if you're wishing to table it until we have the signed development agreement in place and the signed tier in place, it would just be placed on the agenda as an action item, not as another public hearing.
Okay.
It wouldn't require a rule suspension.
Oh, okay. So we wouldn't have to do the public hearing at all? Oh, okay.
So the motion's currently tabled. We don't have to do anything else other than if you want to untable it.
Matt or Nate or someone, is there any reason why we wouldn't want to table it? Knowing I think we're all comfortable tabling it. Is there something where I'm comfortable, I should say. I just don't know if I'm not seeing something.
It does hold up the developer that they want to get going a little bit. So, we are intentionally holding the developer back from moving forward with the process that they have to go through.
What would that be? Do you know? Like, if we waited 2 weeks, what?
Well, they have to then bring, what's the next step on their item? It's been approved by the planning commission. So
They're just waiting to come to council.
Right, so
They're tying up loose ends, but it's close.
Can both of those items come at the same
Yeah.
time?
That's what I'm wondering.
Can we suspend the rules on the second one? If they can't, that's my question.
I think before they can still move forward on the next phase of their development would require, though, another development agreement to be approved.
Yes.
Which I don't think currently will likely be in place in 2 weeks.
Oh, so there wouldn't be a holdup then?
Not currently, no.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. No objections to keeping it tabled? Okay, we'll move on to action item B. Consider resolution number 2025-35. I'm not going to read all of this because we'll be here a while, but authorizing the issuance and sale of not more than 55 million aggregate principal amount of sales and franchise tax revenues bond series 2025. And here back before us is Mariah Hill.
Back again. So this is exactly the same, well, not exactly. Basically the same parameters of resolution that you already adopted, just that what we realized is when we moved into working on the POS is that the transportation tax, the fifth from the county, is actually called out in a separate part of state code that wasn't encompassed in our indentures. And so this still the amount, the parameters are 55 million is the most that will be issued. The highest rate would be 7%, maturity 35 years. And the sale of the bonds no less than 96% of the total principal. But this includes, make sure we've specifically called out that fifth as a revenue that is pledged for these bonds. So that's the only difference, and then we will hold a public hearing on June 27th, or June 17th. June 17th to adopt the documents. Any questions?
Any
Then
questions
good
for
luck
Mariah?
to whoever's going to read the motion.
Thank you, Mariah. It's one of the longest motions I've ever seen, so whoever is willing to tackle that.
What page is it on, the motion?
243.
Okay.
It's not 243 pages, Glenn. It's on page
It's on page
243.
243.
All right. I'll do it. Mayor, I move that we adopt Resolution 2025-R-35, authorizing the issuance and sale of not more than 55 million aggregate principal amount of sales and franchise tax revenue bonds, fixing the maximum aggregate principal amount of the bonds, the maximum number of years over which the bonds may mature, the maximum interest rate which the bonds may bear, and the maximum discount from par at which the bonds may be sold. Sets the public hearing for June 17th, 2025 at 7 p.m. and provides for the running of a contest period.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Rory said the feed cut out, so we're going to have to do that again. No.
So moved.
Just joking. Rory, we call the yeas and nays.
Yes, Councilmember Micklash.
Yes.
Billings.
Yes.
Clever.
Aye.
Robinson. Aye. And Brown.
Yes.
Okay, that passes unanimously. Moving forward with our confusing evening, we do have a closed session tonight, but we are going to, if it's okay with council, temporarily recess our city council meeting, go into the redevelopment meeting, and then subsequently go into the municipal building authority meeting, and then come back to do the closed session.
Yes.
Okay. Is there any objection from the council in proceeding?
No, then, no objection.
Okay. So we are temporarily recessed from city council, and we are going to head into redevelopment agency meeting as soon as I get thumbs up from Rory and IT.
Did we have a second on that?
Oh.
Second.
Is there a
Thank
second?
you.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay.
I'm good. Are you good? To go into RDA? Okay, we're good.
Good. Welcome, everyone, to our redevelopment agency at Midvale City meeting, June 3rd, 2025. We will proceed with a roll call. Roy, we see who's here.
Yes, Board Member Micklash. Here. Billings. Here. Brown.
Here.
Robinson. Here. And Clever.
Here.
Okay, we are all still here. Next, public comments. Anyone wishing to give public comment to the redevelopment agency, please come to the microphone now. You'll be given 3 minutes. Seeing none, we will move on to our first and only public hearing tonight for the redevelopment agency, and that is to receive public comments regarding the fiscal year 2026 redevelopment agency of Midvale City budget beginning July 1st, 2025 and ending June 30th, 2026. Quick, who do you think is going to present this to us? There she
Sometimes
is.
we do bait and switch with this one where it's like my name and then Cody had done it, so.
Who's Cody?
Cody.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know that guy.
No longer with us.
We don't know that guy. Okay, this is the final budget for the RDA. There are no changes from the tentative budget in the operations budget. This is mainly where like they operate their staff out of in the operations fund for the RDA in Bingham Junction. The main change was that they increased their professional services, and then one of the bonds that are issued out of the RDA essentially is a variable rate interest loan, we found out, and so we had to increase. Yeah, I was not pleased either when I found out. So we had to increase the interest amount, though we are, once we're done with these bonds, we'll look at refunding those to not be that, because it was a little bit of a mean surprise. So those are the changes in the Jordan Bluffs fund, or nope, Bingham Junction. In Jordan Bluffs, they just didn't need to transfer quite as much to Main Street, so they've decreased that transfer and then increased their contribution to fund balance. And then in Main Street, adjusted their rents and concession revenues, and the revenues they're getting for the revolving loan program on the revenue side. And then in expenditures, there's quite a few changes, decreasing the project area improvements because of what we're finishing with the plaza this year. Increased professional services for parking structure design, made a line item for the facade improvement grants so we can have those broken out, a decrease in property acquisition line item, have some money for the art house, and then increase the events and promotions to reflect all the events that they're putting on. So and then no changes to the citywide housing fund from the tentative. And if you have hard questions, I will make Kate answer them, so.
Any questions or comments from the council? This is scheduled for a public hearing. Is there a motion to open public comment?
Mayor, I motion we open public comment.
Second?
Okay, a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? We are able to accept public comment. If there's anyone from the public who would like to comment on this public hearing item, please step to the microphone. You'll be given 3 minutes. Seeing none, is there a motion to close public comment?
Mayor, I motion we close public comment.
Second?
Motion and a second. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay, again, this is for public comment only. There's no action item associated with this. Yes, there is.
There
I'm so
is.
sorry.
Yes.
It's too short for me.
Okay, there it is. Yeah, the resolution motion, recommended motion is on the board.
Mayor, I move that we adopt Resolution 2025-04 RDA, adopting the final budget for the redevelopment agency of Midvale City for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2026.
Second.
Okay, motion and multiple seconds. Rory, we call the yeses and nos.
Yes, Board Member Billings,
Yes.
Glover,
Aye.
Robinson,
Aye.
Brown,
Yes.
and Mikuláš.
Yes.
Okay, that passes unanimously. Moving on to our consent agenda, we have one item, consider minutes of May 6th, 2025. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mayor, I motion we approve the consent agenda.
Second?
A motion and a second. Rory, we call the yeas and nays.
Yes, Board Member Mikuláš,
Yes.
Glover,
Aye.
Billings,
Yes.
and Robinson.
Aye,
Robinson.
yes.
And Brown.
Yes. I was very confused.
Okay, that passes unanimously. We have one action item on schedule tonight. Consider resolution number 2025-05 RDA, approving the Jordan Bluffs Project Area Second Amendment to Tax Increment Reimbursement Agreement. This should seem familiar to all of us. Nate, what you got?
This is a tricky one where I had someone present the whole item before I even got up. So this is the same half, the tier-up portion of what we were just talking about. So again, the tax increment reimbursement agreement was approved in 2017. The First Amendment was done when the Zions property was pulled off of Lot 2, and then the cap was set at what it currently is now, which is 40.9 million. The Second Amendment to the TIRA, which you've seen all these, increases that reimbursement cap to 53.3 million. It sets the term for the vac station when Lot 2 reaches a building assessed value of just under 5.4 million. Then that will, sorry, I read the wrong number, 194 million. Then it'll trigger the repayment of the 5.4 million. And the terms that go along with that. There's a little bit more, but that's the basics of it. And then it provides that little sliver of property that Adam showed you, just north of the property that the city just purchased for the expansion of the Public Works building.
How many acres is that?
I think it's just under a half an acre. It doesn't say anywhere there, but it's just under a half an acre. That's it. If you have any questions, you already had most of your questions, but if there's more questions on the tier portion of this, I'd be happy to answer it.
Any additional questions for Nate? Nate, you got the easy part. There's a motion for the council to consider.
Mayor, I move that we suspend the rules and pass resolution number 2025-05 RDA, approving the Jordan Bluffs Project Area Second Amendment to Tax Increment Reimbursement Agreement.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Rory, we call the yeas and nays.
Yes, Board Member Glover,
Aye.
Billings,
Yes.
Robinson,
Aye.
Brown,
Yes.
and Mikuláš.
Yes.
Okay, that passes unanimously. We do not have an RDA closed session, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn the RDA.
Motion to adjourn the RDA.
Second?
Okay, motion and a second. All those in favor of adjourning RDA, say aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. And now we can head into the Municipal Building Authority. I'll wait for a thumbs up.
We're good.
Okay. Welcome, everyone, to Midvale City Municipal Building Authority meeting, June 3rd. I think it's still June 3rd, 2025. Rory, will you call the roll?
Yes, Board Member Billings. Here. Brown,
Here.
Robinson. Here. Glover,
Here.
and Mikuláš.
Here.
Okay, that's all of us. We are all still here, still alert. Next up, public comments. Any person wishing to comment on any item not otherwise on the agenda for the Municipal Building Authority, please step up to the microphone. I will always stress the fact that if you give public comment in the MBA, you will be immortalized in history because no one has ever given public comment in the MBA. So now is your chance, if you wish.
Oh, yes.
Sue Armitage.
You can't say that anymore now.
Nope.
Totally unrelated to the MBA.
Oh, get her out of here.
I'm Sue Armitage, and I think you all rock, and thank you for your service to Midvale and your willingness to stay here late at night when you'd rather be home. And that's what I have to say.
Well, thank you, Sue. As Municipal Building Authority board members, we appreciate your comments. Would anyone else like to public comment on anything at all? Nope. Okay. Seeing none, Sue, you get a Hall of Fame for that. We have one public hearing on the schedule for tonight. Receive public comment regarding the fiscal year 2026 Municipal Building Authority proposed budget beginning July 1st, 2025. I'm sorry, I'm already laughing because I know it's Mariah. It's just cracking me up.
Almost done.
And ending June 30th, 2026. Mariah Hill, welcome back to the microphone.
The bad news is kind of going to be like this next time, too, so sorry about that. Here is the budget. It has not changed from the tentative one that you adopted. This fund, this MBA, essentially exists because we have some debt issued by it to build this building, do some street lighting, do some other improvements around the city, and all the money comes into this, and then we pay that debt. And that is the totality of what happens in this organization.
MBA 101.
Any questions?
Questions for Mariah?
I'm fine. I'm living the dream. I went to another city council meeting recently where because I'm very kind and did government finance 101 for them, I don't know, they talked about term limits for 2 hours before I went up, even though I was scheduled as the first thing on the agenda.
Wait, there's someone that talks more than me about things?
No. 2 hours.
I can change that.
Yes,
I can
yes. No, that wasn't a challenge. It was
They should accept it.
an anecdote of a terrible experience, so.
Oh, that's an interesting one. So this is also a public hearing. I will entertain a motion to open public comment.
Motion that we open public hearing.
Second?
Okay, motion and a second. All those in favor of opening this to public comment, say aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? Public comment, do your thing if you want. 3 minutes. Step up to the mic.
Wait, didn't we?
That was a public comment for the MBA.
This is the 9th one, so it's all running together, but no.
It goes together.
Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to close public comment.
Motion to close public comment.
Second?
Motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? We do have a recommended motion on the board for the council to consider.
Mayor, I move that we adopt Resolution 2025-02 MBA, adopting the final budget for the Midvale City Municipal Building Authority for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2026.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Rory, will you call the yeas and nays?
Yes, Board Member Billings.
Yes.
Glover.
Aye.
Robinson.
Aye.
Brown.
Yes.
And Mikuláš.
Yes.
Okay, that passes unanimously as well. One additional item for the MBA consent agenda. Consider minutes of May 6th, 2025. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
Motion and a second. Rory, will you call the yeas and nays on that one?
Yes, Board Member Brown.
Yes.
Mikuláš.
Yes.
Glover.
Aye.
Billings.
Yes.
And Robinson.
Aye.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, that passes. We have a motion to adjourn. We have a second. All those in favor of adjourning the Municipal Building Authority, say aye.
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 Any opposed? We are adjourned from the MBA. And now we will proceed. Does anyone need a bathroom break? Okay. Okay.
I was just gonna say, I think we could keep it pretty.
Okay, if you guys keep it short,
Okay.
yeah, I'm in.
Okay, so we are back in our regular city council meeting. We do have a closed session tonight, and it will be a strategy session to discuss pending or reasonably imminent litigation. So we need a motion from the council to enter that closed session.
I move that we enter the closed session to discuss
what the mayor said.
Second.
Motion and a second. I'm looking
Very
at
efficient.
Garrett.
We're getting ready,
Yeah.
guys.
What thumbs up and motion? Okay, Rory, we call the roll on that?
Yes. Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Mikulish. Yes. Billings.
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Glover.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, that passes. We are